Have you ever noticed how life never waits for you to get everything together? One day, your job feels rock solid. The next, an innocent headline sends the entire industry into a tailspin. A friendship that felt unbreakable suddenly drifts into awkward silence. Even our own bodies, those amazing, stubborn machine-esque, flip from perfect health to mystery aches overnight. If your gut reaction is a little jolt of anxiety, you're not alone. Our modern world trains us to chase stability like it's a finish line. Yet, the ancient Stoics think of Marcus Aurelius scribbling in his war tent, or Epictetus teaching in a cramped courtyard believed instability isn't a glitch in the system, it is the system. And that single shift of perspective changes everything. Picture a blacksmith's forge. Blistering heat, sparks flying, hammers crashing against steel. Chaotic, right? But that chaos is exactly what tempers raw iron into an unbreakable blade. Life works the same way. Those unexpected layoffs, sudden breakups, or frightening medical calls each is a hammer strike. The Stoic question isn't, how do I dodge all the sparks? It's, how do I let the fire shape me into something stronger? Let me pause and ask you, what was your last forge moment? Maybe it was a cross-country move, a parent's illness, or an economic curveball none of us saw coming. Did it leave you brittle? Or did it burn away the unnecessary parts and reveal a clearer, tougher core? Jot it down, because we'll revisit that. Here's the kicker. The Stoics never promised comfort. They promised capacity. A calm, grounded life contrary to most Instagram feeds doesn't spring from color-coded planners or five-star retreats, though those can be lovely perks. It grows from habits of mind refined over 2 millennia. Think of Marcus Aurelius on a battlefield, snow piling up on his tent, writing reminders to himself like, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Or Seneca, managing political drama in ancient Rome, telling his own jittery heart, "Thou mayest be happy even in a palace." They weren't waiting for a day without chaos. They were cultivating a mindset that expected chaos and met it with composure. Let's translate that to 2025. When your phone lights up with breaking news market dives, AI breakthroughs, celebrity scandals, do you instinctively doom scroll? Or do you pause, breathe, and ask, is this within my control? That single question, lifted straight from Epictetus, is a 2,000-year-old tool that still feels freshly minted. So, what are these tools? Keep your mental checklist handy. 1. Dichotomy of control. Separate what you can influence, your actions, judgments, from what you can't, the weather, other people's opinions. Spend energy only on the first pile. 2. Voluntary discomfort. Intentionally practice small hardships, cold showers, digital detox weekends, walking instead of Uber. These are fire drills for the soul, proving you can handle more than you think. 3. Premeditatio malorum. Visualize potential setbacks in advance, no to worry yourself sick, but to rehearse resilience. You've already seen the worst in your mind, so reality can't blindside you. 4. Evening reflection. Each night, audit your day. Where did I act with virtue? Where did I flinch? Improvement starts with honest self-inventory. Now, let's be real. You might hear that list and think, cool philosophy lesson, but I've got rent, deadlines, and a toddler who just discovered permanent markers. Good news. Stoicism is brutally practical. It was crafted by emperors, slaves, merchants, people juggling real responsibilities, not monks meditating on mountain peaks. Here's where I make it personal. Last year, my small creative agency lost its biggest client overnight. Revenue down 60%. I spiraled, refreshing email, pacing the apartment, mentally rewriting my resume at 2 a.m. Then a friend texted a single quote from Seneca. "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." I wrote it on a sticky note, slapped it on my laptop, and committed to one Stoic habit: morning journaling on what is and is not under my control. Within weeks, I noticed an absurd thing. Our bank balance was still scary, but my pulse stayed steady. That calm freed mental bandwidth to pitch new clients, experiment with services, and plot twist produce the video you're watching right now. Forge, meet stronger steel. So, how do you start? Try this 24-hour Stoic challenge. Morning. Before your coffee, write 3 potential disruptions the day might lob at you: traffic jam, negative feedback, family argument. Plan 1 principled response for each. Midday. When the first disruption hits, and it will, catch yourself. Whisper, "This is the forge." Then respond with the plan, not the panic. Evening. Reflect for 5 minutes. Did your mindset hold? No shame if you cracked. Note it, learn, move on. Repeat tomorrow, and the next. Eventually, you won't need the sticky notes. The mindset becomes muscle memory. Let's end where we began. Life is unstable by design. But instability isn't a thief. It's a sculptor. The Stoics handed us chisels questions, exercises, reflections tested across empires rising and falling. Now, the toolkit is in your hands. So ask yourself right now, if everything shifts tomorrow, who do I become in the heat? Leave your answer in the comments. Not a vague, "I'll be fine," but a concrete vision. I'll pause, breathe, remember what's mine to control, and act with courage. Share it, refine it, live it. Because at the end of the day, the end of the empire, the only true stability is the character you forge within. And that, my friends, is a life that no headline, no recession, no shifting relationship can ever steal. Have you ever noticed how we're taught to fear changes if the unknown is always something dangerous? We're told to brace for impact, weather the storm, or wait for things to go back to normal. But what if the storm is normal? The Stoics had a radically different take. Instead of merely tolerating change or surviving chaos, they encouraged us to love it. Yes, amor fati, the love of fate. Not just passive acceptance, but a deep, active embrace of everything that happens, good or bad, as fuel for growth. Think about nature. Certain pine trees, like the lodgepole pine, hold their seeds in tightly sealed cones. And here's the twist: they only open after a wildfire. Flames must burn through the forest before new life can begin. No fire, no forest, no chaos, no rebirth. Life works the same way. The job loss that forces you to rethink your path. The heartbreak that opens a space for deeper love. The health scare that wakes you up to what really matters. These aren't just interruptions, they're initiations. There's a quote I love: "Fire doesn't just destroy, it reveals and refines." And isn't that the truth? Fire strips away what's unnecessary. It forces clarity. It shows us what we're made of. So, next time life throws something unexpected your way, a layoff, a betrayal, a breakdown tree, asking this: what is this fire here to reveal in me? Not why me, but what now? What strength, what wisdom, what resilience is this moment trying to unlock? You don't have to like every twist of fate, but if you meet each one with open arms and a clear heart, it will shape you not into something burned and bitter, but into something stronger, clearer, more alive than ever before. That's not just Stoicism. That's real, lasting power. Let's face it, when things go wrong, our first instinct is usually resistance. Why is this happening to me? But what if the obstacle in front of you isn't blocking your path, it is the path? Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor of Rome, wrote something bold. "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." Let that sink in. Not some things, everything. Every failure, every delay, every betrayal, it all becomes part of the fire. And not to consume you, but to fuel you. This isn't just poetic, it's practical. Think about it. How many times in your life did a setback force you to level up? The job you didn't get pushed you to start something on your own. The breakup that broke your heart led you to confront parts of yourself you'd been ignoring. The illness that slowed you down gave you clarity you never had when you were healthy. The Stoics saw adversity not as punishment, but as precision. Life shaping you exactly where you're soft, sharpening you where you're dull. It's not cruelty, it's craftsmanship. There's a Stoic principle that still echoes today. What stands in the way becomes the way. It's not a motivational quote, it's a blueprint. You lost the deal? Now's your chance to rebuild better. You got rejected? Now's the moment to realign with what truly matters. You hit rock bottom? That's the bedrock of reinvention. It's not easy. This mindset takes courage and practice. But once you stop seeing obstacles as interruptions and start seeing them as invitations, you begin to walk through life like that fire, burning brighter with every log thrown on. So the next time life throws something heavy at you, don't ask how to avoid the hit. Ask instead, how do I turn this into fuel? Because the most unstoppable people aren't the ones who avoid adversity. They're the ones who feed on it. Pause for a second and scan the headlines: wars, layoffs, another virus variant trying to trend on Twitter. It's easy to feel like the weight on your shoulders is uniquely heavy, that no one could possibly understand the pressure cooker you're living in. But history whispers a different story. You are not walking this path alone, and you never have. Take Marcus Aurelius. Most people picture him as Rome's philosopher king scribbling calm wisdom in marble halls. What they forget is that he wrote those reflections while an empire-wide pandemic, what we now call the Antonine Plague, ravaged his troops and citizens alike. Imagine drafting meditations on virtue with tents of the sick just outside your door. Or consider Seneca, exiled by decree, and Epictetus, born into slavery. Every Stoic we admire carried scars that would look familiar to us today. War flashbacks, political betrayal, sudden loss. Fast forward to the 21st century. Whether you were stocking up on toilet paper in 2020 or nursing a broken business in 2023, you've lived through echoes of the same storms. The scenery changes, togas are out, Wi-Fi routers are in, but the emotional landscape remains eerily constant. Struggle is humanity's common language. That brings me to psychologist Carl Jung, who pinpointed the real root of loneliness. Loneliness does not come from having no people around, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to us. Think about that. You can sit in a packed office, a bustling coffee shop, even a crowded family dinner and still feel isolated if you're convinced no one gets what keeps you up at night. So here's the Stoic Jung mashup challenge. Speak what matters. Tell a friend, a journal, or the comment section below exactly what obstacle you're wrestling with. Not the polished LinkedIn version, give us the raw draft. The moment you put your private battle into shared words, you punch a hole in the wall of isolation. Suddenly you're linked to every soul, past and present, who has fought a similar fight. Let's make it practical. The next time you feel the no one understands spiral, run this quick checklist. 1. Historical mirror. Who in the past faced something similar? Marcus in a plague? Seneca in exile? 2. Modern ally. Who around you might relate if you dare to open up co-worker, sibling, virtual community? 3. Bridge sentence. Craft one honest line that captures your struggle. I'm terrified my best isn't enough. Share it. Watch isolation crack. Because when you realize your fears are footnotes in a much larger human saga, two things happen. The burden lightens, and the path forward brightens. Your struggle stops being a private abyss and becomes a shared story we can all learn from and cheer you through. So tell me in the comments, what weight are you carrying right now? And what ancient or modern voice reminds you you're not alone? Your honesty might be the torch that helps someone else find their way out of the dark. Picture yourself standing in a river. The water keeps pushing, swirling, carrying twigs and sunlight downstream. You have two choices. Stiffen your legs until they cramp, or lift your feet and glide with the current. Nature's rhythm is movement, and the Stoics knew that bracing against that rhythm only multiplies pain. Carl Jung nailed it centuries later. What you resist persists. Translation? The harder you slam the brakes on change, the louder the screech rings in your ears. Need proof? Let's talk about an unlikely Stoic hero. Queen Elizabeth II. 70 years on the throne, longer than most of us will spend in our careers, she outlived 13 US presidents, the birth of rock and roll, the smartphone revolution, even TikTok dances filmed on palace grounds. Her secret wasn't some rigid master plan carved in marble, it was continual adaptation. From televised coronations in the 1950s to tweeting official messages in her 90s, she kept updating the operating system without gutting the core values of service and stability. She surfed the river instead of damming it. Now, let's bring that lens to your life. Ask yourself, where are you digging in your heels? Maybe you're clinging to an outdated business model because that's how we've always done it. Or holding on to a self-image that expired 3 life chapters ago. Here's a quick reality check. Vinyl records, once left for dead, came roaring back only because artists and labels adapted them into collector's items. Your job, your relationships, your body, everything echoes that same law. Change isn't a glitch, it's the operating principle. So how do you practice adaptability without feeling like you're surrendering your identity? Try this 3-step micro drill. 1. Daily reboot. Each morning, name one assumption you're willing to test. Could be as small as switching your workout time, or as bold as pitching a new service at work. 2. Feedback loop. Midday, check the data results, feelings, reactions, adapt again. Agile companies do this every sprint. You can too. 3. Evening archive. Before bed, ask, what did change teach me today? Write one sentence. Over weeks, you'll build a living document of personal evolution. Remember, flexibility isn't flimsiness. Bamboo bends in the storm, oak snaps. The Stoics weren't pushovers, they were strategists of flow. They understood that responding to reality as it is, not as we wish it to be, is the only path to lasting power and peace. So here's your river test. What part of your life needs a software update right now, and what tiny action will you take in the next 24 hours to install it? Drop your answer below. Your comment might be the ripple that nudges someone else toward their own breakthrough. Because the river is moving whether we like it or not. Better to lift our feet, find our balance, and ride the current all the way home. Close your eyes and picture 2 travelers stuck in the same airport delay. One is pacing, muttering, certain their day is ruined. The other props their feet on a carry-on, opens a book, and smiles at the extra reading time. Same delay, 2 realities. Epictetus saw this 20 centuries ago and wrote the line that still slaps us awake today. It's not things that upset us, but our judgments about things. So let's test that right now. Grab the heaviest frustration on your mind, maybe a stalled promotion, a knee injury, or a relationship detour you never asked for. What if the event itself is neutral data, and your interpretation is the true architect of your mood, your choices, your future? That simple switch flips you from victim to author. Need proof? Meet Carlos and Nina, fictional names, real story. Both were laid off in the same downsizing wave. Carlos framed it as cosmic injustice. Months later, he's still scrolling the news, bitter and frozen. Nina reframed it as a forced sabbatical. She audited free online classes, built a freelance portfolio, and landed a remote gig she loves. Same pink slip, 2 scripts. Nina didn't choose fairness, she chose meaning. Carl Jung echoed that power play centuries after Epictetus. I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become. Jung isn't denying pain, he's handing us the pen. Every setback delivers 2 packages, the raw circumstance and the blank page on which we caption it. Pick carefully, because the caption tends to become the character's destiny. Here's a personal illustration. Last year, a tornado of medical bills wiped out my savings. First frame. life is punishing me for chasing a creative career. That story bred despair fast. Second frame. After a night of Stoic journaling, life just handed me a PhD course in financial intelligence. Same numbers, different narrative. And guess what? That reframing jolted me into negotiating hospital costs and launching a side project that now pays the premiums. Ready to practice? Run this 3-step Stoic lens exercise. 1. Name the event. Strip it to facts, no adjectives, no judgment. Project was rejected. 2. Spot the default caption, usually loaded with catastrophe words. I'll never get a shot again. 3. Write the empowered caption, one sentence that turns the same data into fuel. Now I have feedback to build version 2.0. Do this on paper. Watch the emotional voltage drop and the problem-solving light bulb switch on. So the question for you, yes, you with the earbuds and the half-finished coffee, what story are you telling about the hardest thing in your life right now? And what story could you tell instead? Drop the old line and draft a new one in the comments. Your rewrite might unlock someone else's, because reality is relentless, but meaning is mobile. And once you master the art of reframing, every rough chapter becomes raw material for the hero arc you were born to live. Let me ask you something simple but powerful. What's swirling around in your mind right now? That half-finished conversation? That what-if scenario? That worry you keep pushing aside? Here's the truth the Stoics knew well, and modern psychology has confirmed. What we don't write down often ends up writing us. Marcus Aurelius, arguably one of the busiest and most burdened men in history, leading wars, enduring plagues, watching his friends betray him still, made time to journal. Not because he wanted to be a writer, but because he knew that putting thoughts on paper was how you tame them. In his meditations, Marcus didn't preach to others, he wrote to himself. Raw, real, unfiltered. He wasn't trying to sound wise, he was trying to stay sane. Journaling was his private mirror, his compass, his way to drag confusion out of the dark and into the light. Fast forward to the 20th century, and Carl Jung echoes the same truth in psychological terms. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. That quote should be tattooed on every phone screen. Because most of our anxiety, it's just unnamed thoughts lurking in the shadows, making decisions for us while we pretend we're fine. So here's the practice. Journal, even just 5 minutes a night. Before bed, ask yourself one simple but piercing question. Are these facts or just fears? Try it. Write out the thing that's stressing you. I think I'm going to lose my job. Then ask, is that a fact? Did someone say that? Or is it a fear, built on assumptions and spiraling thoughts? The moment you make that distinction, fact versus fear, you create space. Space to think clearly, to choose a response, to breathe. And if you're wondering, do I have to handwrite it? Nope. Use your Notes app, a Google Doc, even a napkin. This isn't about being poetic. It's about creating clarity. It's about stopping the spin. Personally, journaling saved me when my life felt like a junk drawer, everything jumbled together, important stuff buried under noise. Once I started writing it out, I realized half of my stress wasn't from reality. It was from storytelling. Wild inner scripts I never questioned. Now, I journal not to be productive, but to be present. So, here's your nightly ritual challenge. Before you sleep, write down. 1. What's weighing on me today? 2. Are these thoughts, facts, or fears? 3. What would a calm, wise version of me say back? Repeat this for 1 week. Watch what changes. Because in the end, if you don't speak your mind will speak for you. Loudly, unchecked, and often unkindly. Write it down. Face it. Free yourself. So, What thought are you ready to drag into the light tonight? Share it in the comments, or better yet, write it for yourself. Because sometimes, the pen is the sword. Pause with me for 10 seconds. Serious lighten. Draw an invisible camera line from your forehead straight up through the roof, past the street lamps, the city skyline, the layer of clouds, all the way into the hush of orbit. Now glance back down at that single worry chewing on your Minda late payment, a tense email, a weird sound in your car. From up here it looks tiny, right? That's the power of a wide-angle view, and it was one of Marcus Aurelius's favorite tricks. In Meditations, he reminds himself to look at things as they are entirely and from a distance. The moment we zoom out, our problems shrink to scale, and solutions that felt invisible at street level suddenly flicker into focus. Philosophers have been preaching this cosmic zoom long before drones or satellites. Take Plato's cave. Remember that high school diagram of prisoners staring at a wall of shadows, convinced that flickering silhouettes are all reality has to offer? Freedom begins the second one. Prisoner scrambles outside, blinks in the sunlight, and realizes, oh, those dancing shapes were just echoes of a much bigger world. Same cave, different vantage point. Same life, radically upgraded understanding. Socrates takes it one step deeper. He says wisdom starts in wonder, the willingness to step outside the echo chamber and ask, what else is out there? That simple act of looking up is more than poetic. It's neurological. Studies show that gazing at a wide landscape, or even a high ceiling, nudges the brain into big picture, creative mode. Problems feel less like dead ends and more like puzzles with multiple paths. Let's ground this in real life. My friend Amy used to spiral anytime her sales numbers dipped. One Friday she freaked when she was 30% behind target. But instead of doom-scrolling spreadsheets, she pulled up Google Earth, zoomed out until her town was a speck, then her continent, then the blue marble itself. Cheesy? Maybe. Effective? Absolutely. She told me, seeing my problem float inside 7 billion lives melted the panic. I sent 3 courageous follow-up emails I'd been avoiding, and 2 closed the next week. Same sales slump, newly expanded horizon. Here's a quick perspective reset you can try tonight. 1. Physical zoom. Step outside at dusk. Find the moon or a stubborn star. Lock eyes for 60 seconds. Feel your heartbeat slow as the sky reminds you how huge life is. 2. Temporal zoom. Picture yourself 5 years in the future recounting today's snag. Will it be a funny anecdote, a footnote, or even memorable at all? Most dramas fade to warm-up exercises in hindsight. 3. Relational zoom. List 3 global stories bigger than yours: medical breakthroughs, humanitarian wins, scientific missions. Let their scale recalibrate yours. Ask yourself, what problem am I upgrading from life-ending to manageable challenge the moment I widen the lens? Drop that revelation in the comments. Your reframed story might hand someone else the ladder out of their cave. Because at ground level, every storm feels endless. But lift your eyes a few thousand feet, and you'll see the horizon wrapping quietly around it, whispering, this too is just weather. Keep moving. Let me ask you something. How much of your energy today went into things you can't actually control? The weather? A stranger's comment? The economy? Your partner's mood? If you're like most people, the answer is too much. And here's the Stoic wake-up call. That's exactly why you're tired, anxious, and restless. The Stoics gave us a life-altering mental filter called the dichotomy of control. It's simple. Divide the world into 2 buckets, what's up to you and what's not. Then put all your energy, focus, and effort into your side of the line. What's on your side? Your thoughts, your reactions, your choices? What's not? Everything else. Let that sink in. Can you control what your boss thinks of you? But you can control how well you prepare for the meeting. Can you guarantee your kids won't face struggle? but you can show up present and strong every day. Can you stop the stock market from crashing? Nope. But you can control your spending, your planning, and your calm. Socrates once said, "Let him who would move the world first move himself." That's the essence of this practice. If you want to create impact, clarity, peace, you have to start at the only true starting point, you. That's not weakness, that's precision. The kind of precision that builds unshakable character. And speaking of character, Aristotle reminds us, virtue is not a feeling, it's a habit. That means every single time you choose patience instead of panic, every time you respond instead of react, you're not just making a smart decision, you're training your soul. You're laying bricks for a house that won't collapse in the next storm. Let me share a personal example. Last year, a deal I counted on fell through. The client ghosted, bills stacked up, and my first instinct? Freak out. But I paused, took out a sheet of paper, drew 2 columns. What I can control, what I can't. On the left, new pitch ideas, outreach, morning routine. On the right, the client's silence, the market, my fear. I focused on the left side like my life depended on it, and slowly things shifted. So here's your challenge tonight. Draw that line, literally, 2 columns. List your current stressors and split them into mine and not mine. Then take bold, creative, loving action only in the column that's yours. And in the comments, share one thing you're letting go of today and one thing you're choosing to reclaim control over. Your clarity might spark someone else's peace. Because in a world full of noise and storms, real power is quiet, real strength is focused, and real freedom? It begins exactly where you stop wasting energy on what was never yours to hold. Let me offer you an image, a simple one, but powerful. An emerald. Now picture that emerald sitting quietly in the middle of a storm. Thunder cracking, winds howling, dust swirling everywhere. But the emerald? It doesn't dim, doesn't change shape. It remains solid, clear, and quietly shining. That, my friend, is who you're meant to be, not someone who reacts to chaos, but someone who radiates from the inside out. Marcus Aurelius said it best. The role you're in right now? Yes, this one is your arena for philosophy. Not the fantasy future, not the perfect job, not the version of your life you're still waiting for. It's this moment, this challenge, this ordinary Tuesday. That's where your strength gets forged. That's where your principles are tested. And that's where your light has the most value, because it's surrounded by shadows. You don't need a new title or a new place to become who you are. You need a deeper connection to your core, your values, your character, your truth. Everything outside of that will shift. Your income, your health, your relationships. But the person you choose to be in the middle of all that change, that's your emerald. Carl Jung called it the privilege of a lifetime to become who you truly are. Not who others want you to be. Not who you pretend to be to fit in. But the version of you that's been quietly waiting beneath all the noise and masks. Let me share something real. A few years back, I was chasing approval like it was oxygen saying yes when I wanted to say no, shrinking in rooms where I should have stood tall. It wasn't burnout that hit me first. It was this eerie feeling I'd lost myself. So I stopped. I journaled. I stripped back the layers. And one mantra kept echoing. You don't need to become someone else to be enough. That's when I started living like the emerald. Holding steady in hard conversations. Shining without needing to perform. Staying honest even when it cost me applause. And ironically, that's when people started really seeing me. So here's a question I want you to sit with. When the world shakes, what part of you stays still? And if that part feels foggy or missing, maybe this is your season to rediscover it. Tonight, write this at the top of a journal page. What's at my core that doesn't change? Let the words flow. Don't edit. Let the truth rise. Because you don't need to chase light. You are the light. the emerald in the storm, and you were never meant to blend in with the dust. Take a breath with me. Feel the air fill your lungs, then leave proof that even in the quietest moment, change is already happening. The Stoics noticed this rhythm 2,000 years ago and handed us a compact toolkit for surviving thriving in a world that never stops shifting. First, acceptance. Life isn't a rogue glitch that needs fixing. Instability is the default setting. Embrace the wildfire moments, amor fati, and remember, lodgepole pines only release their seeds after the burn. Second, reframing. Epictetus reminds us, it's not events, but our judgments that shake us. We can turn obstacles into fuel, bend setbacks into stepping stones, and rewrite our inner captions from, I'm cursed, to I'm being carved into something stronger. Third, journaling. Marcus Aurelius poured chaos onto paper so it couldn't pour poison into his mind. A nightly 5-minute check-in. Are these facts or fears? Shifts swirling anxieties into solvable puzzles. Fourth, perspective. Zoom out like Plato's liberated prisoner. Step beyond the cave of headlines and deadlines, look up at the skyline or the night sky, and watch immediate problems shrink to their true size. Fifth, disciplined control. Draw that Stoic line. What's up to me? What's not? Put every watt of energy into the column labeled thoughts, choices, actions, and release the rest like exhaling stale air. Blend those 5 habits, and you get a life that bends without breaking. Volatility becomes conditioning. Uncertainty becomes adventure. And character your emerald core gets polished with every strike. Here's the final challenge. Design your response before the storm hits. Pick one tool tonight. Maybe it's drafting your first facts or fears journal entry, or making 2 quick columns on a scrap of paper and practice it before breakfast tomorrow. Skill is repetition. Virtue is habit. Peace is the compound interest of small, daily disciplines. So, the chaos? Yeah, it's coming. Markets will swing, phones will buzz, plans will unravel. But when it does, picture yourself stepping onto a mental balcony, gripping the Stoic toolkit like a craftsman's belt, and saying, I can't control the winds, but I can set my sails. Because in the end, chaos reveals character. And if you choose acceptance, reframing, journaling, perspective, and disciplined control, the story it tells about you will be one of resilience, clarity, and quiet, unshakable power. Now, drop a comment. Which Stoic tool are you committing to this week, and why? Let's hold each other accountable and keep turning life's wildfire into the fertile ground of stronger selves.